The conference room felt suffocating as my mother-in-law, Margaret Sterling, burst through the doors, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floor. I was in the middle of presenting our company's quarterly projections when she interrupted, her face twisted with disdain. "What is she doing here?" she demanded, blaring at my husband James. "This is a serious business meeting, not some housewives' book club. My name is Emma Chen, and at 32, I'd spent the last 5 years helping build Sterling Technologies from a struggling startup into a thriving tech company." Not that Margaret ever acknowledged my contributions. To her, I was just the woman who'd married her precious son, a union she never approved of. I kept my expression neutral as I met her gaze. "I'm presenting our Q4 projections, Margaret. As COO, it's my responsibility to—" "COO?" she scoffed, turning to James. "Darling, you can't be serious. Giving her a fancy title doesn't make her qualified. This is a family business, and she's not really family." The words stung, but I refused to let it show. James shifted uncomfortably in his chair, avoiding my eyes. "Mother, Emma's been instrumental in—" "No," Margaret cut him off sharply. "I won't stand for this. I founded this company 30 years ago, and I won't watch it be run into the ground by someone who doesn't understand our legacy." The other board members sat in uncomfortable silence. I could feel their eyes on me, waiting to see how I'd react. 5 years of dealing with Margaret's constant undermining had taught me to keep my composure, but this was different. This was public humiliation. "Margaret," I started, my voice steady despite the anger bubbling inside me. "The numbers speak for themselves. Under my leadership, our profit margins have increased by—" "Under your leadership," she laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Let's be clear, dear. The only reason you're here is because you married my son. And that can change." The threat hung in the air, heavy and explicit. I looked at James, waiting for him to defend me, to stand up to his mother. But he just sat there, staring at his hands folded on the table. "You know what?" I said, gathering my papers with deliberate calm. "You're right, Margaret. This meeting is for family only. I'll see myself out." As I walked toward the door, Margaret's smug smile reflected in the glass panels. She thought she'd won, that she finally put me in my place. What she didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this moment for months. I'd seen it coming, the increasing hostility, the not-so-subtle attempts to push me out. So I'd started building something of my own, working late into the night after everyone else had gone home. I'd leveraged my connections, secured investors, and laid the groundwork for a company that would either be my safety net or my revenge. That night, as I sat in my home office reviewing the final details of my exit strategy, James finally came home. He looked tired, his tie loose around his neck. "Emma," he said, hovering in the doorway. "About today, you know how Mother gets. She's just protective of the company." I kept typing, not bothering to look up. "Protective? Is that what we're calling it now? She built Sterling Technologies from nothing?" he continued, his voice taking on that defensive tone he always used when discussing his mother. "She's earned the right to humiliate me in front of the board." I finally met his gaze. "To threaten our marriage because I dared to be good at my job." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "That's not what she meant. You're taking it too personally." "Too personally?" I laughed, the sound hollow. "Your mother just suggested you divorce me because I'm not good enough for her precious company. How exactly should I take that?" "She's under a lot of stress," James argued. "The merger talks with Tech Solutions have her worried about the company's future. Once that's settled, nothing will change." I cut him off. "Your mother will never see me as anything but the gold digger who trapped her son, and you'll never stand up to her." The truth of those words hung between us. James had always been caught between his mother and me, and he'd always chosen her. Even now, he couldn't bring himself to fully defend me. "What do you want me to do?" he asked, spreading his hands helplessly. "She's my mother. And I'm your wife," I said quietly. "But that's never been enough, has it?" He started to respond, but I held up a hand. "Just go, James. I have work to do." After he left, I opened my laptop and pulled up the email I'd been drafting. It was addressed to Vincent Zhang, one of the most successful venture capitalists in Silicon Valley. We'd been in talks for weeks about my new company, and after today's events, I knew it was time to make my move. "Dear Vincent," I typed, my fingers flying across the keyboard. I'm ready to move forward with the proposal we discussed. The prototype is complete, and I can start immediately. I hit send before I could second guess myself. Then I opened another email, this one to my private lawyer. Please prepare the resignation letter we discussed. I'll submit it first thing tomorrow morning. As I worked through the night, finalizing details and making calls, I thought about Margaret's words. She was right about one thing. I wasn't family. I was something better. I was a competitor. The next morning, I arrived at Sterling Technologies earlier than usual. The office was quiet. Most employees wouldn't arrive for another hour. I went straight to my office and began packing my personal belongings into a box. My assistant Sarah appeared in the doorway, her eyes widening at the sight. "Miss Chen, what's going on?" I smiled at her, feeling lighter than I had in months. "Time for a change, Sarah. Actually, I was hoping to talk to you about something. How would you feel about a new opportunity?" Sarah had been with me for 3 years, and she was brilliant. Margaret had never noticed her potential, but I had. By the time the office started filling up, Sarah had agreed to join my new venture, and I finished packing. I left my resignation letter on James's desk, along with my company phone and laptop. As I walked through the lobby for the last time, I heard Margaret's voice behind me. "Running away, dear?" she called out, her tone dripping with satisfaction. "I knew you didn't have what it takes." I turned to face her, smiling genuinely for the first time in weeks. "No, Margaret, I'm not running away. I'm moving forward. But don't worry, you'll be seeing me again soon enough." She frowned, confusion crossing her face, but I didn't stay to explain. I had meetings to attend and a company to build. Margaret Sterling had taught me one valuable lesson. Sometimes the best revenge is success. As I drove away from Sterling Technologies, my phone buzzed with a text from Vincent Zhang. "Board meeting scheduled for 2 p.m. Ready to make history." I smiled, thinking about the prototype safely stored in my home office. Margaret thought she knew everything about me, about what I was capable of. She had no idea what was coming. The next few weeks were a blur of meetings, presentations, and late nights. I'd rented a small office space in downtown San Francisco, and Sarah had helped me assemble a team of talented developers who believed in my vision. The prototype we'd been working on in secret was a revolutionary AI-powered software that could transform how companies handled their supply chain management. It was exactly the kind of innovation Sterling Technologies needed for their merger with Tech Solutions, except now they wouldn't have access to it. James called repeatedly in the first few days after I left, but I let his calls go to voicemail. I didn't have time for his half-hearted apologies or attempts to convince me to come back. I was building something of my own, and nothing was going to distract me from that. 3 weeks after my departure, I sat across from Vincent Zhang in his sleek office overlooking the Bay Bridge. He studied the projection figures on his tablet, his expression unreadable. "These numbers are impressive, Emma," he said finally, looking up at me. "But you realize who you're going up against? Sterling Technologies isn't going to take this lying down." I nodded, confident. "I'm counting on it. Margaret Sterling has underestimated me from day one. It's time she learned that was a mistake." Vincent leaned back in his chair, a slight smile playing at his lips. "Well then, I think it's time we made this official. Welcome to the big leagues, Ms. Chen." As I signed the investment agreement, I thought about Margaret's face when she realized what I'd been building right under her nose. The satisfaction would be sweet, but this wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about proving to myself and everyone else that I was more than just James Sterling's wife. I was Emma Chen, CEO of Nova Tech Solutions, and I was just getting started. 3 months after leaving Sterling Technologies, I sat in my new office, reviewing the latest press coverage of Nova Tech Solutions. Forbes had just published a feature on emerging tech companies, and there we were, front and center. Nova Tech Solutions, the future of supply chain management, the headline read, with my photo prominently displayed. I couldn't help but smile, imagining Margaret's face when she saw it. The article detailed our revolutionary AI software and its potential to transform the industry. It also mentioned my previous role at Sterling Technologies, though it tactfully avoided mentioning my marriage to their CEO. My phone buzzed. It was Sarah. "Ms. Chen, Tech Solutions is here for the meeting." Perfect timing. Tech Solutions, the same company Sterling Technologies had been courting for a merger, was now sitting in my conference room. Sometimes karma worked in mysterious ways. As I walked into the meeting, I recognized Thomas Wright, Tech Solutions CEO, from the merger discussions at Sterling. His eyebrows rose slightly when he saw me, but he quickly recovered. "Ms. Chen," he said, extending his hand. "I must admit, when I heard about Novatech, I was intrigued, even more so when I learned you were behind it." I shook his hand firmly. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Wright. I believe we have something that could be very valuable to Tech Solutions." The presentation went exactly as planned. Our AI software was exactly what they needed, and they knew it. By the time we finished the demo, Thomas was practically leaning forward in his seat. "This is impressive," he said, looking at the projection screen where our software was running. "Very impressive. And you developed this entirely after leaving Sterling." I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. I had the concept for a while, but yes, the development happened after my departure. He shared a look with his team before turning back to me. "Well, I think we should discuss potential collaboration. As you might know, we were in talks with Sterling Technologies." "Were?" I asked, noting his use of past tense. Thomas smiled slightly. "Let's just say we're exploring other options now. Their recent performance has been concerning." I knew exactly what he meant. Sterling's stock had taken a hit after my departure, and the rumors about internal turmoil hadn't helped. Several key clients had started looking elsewhere, and their new product launch had been delayed indefinitely. Later that evening, as I was preparing to leave the office, my phone rang. It was James, the first time he tried to call in weeks. "Have you seen it?" he asked without preamble. "Seen what?" "The Forbes article. She's not taking it well." I could imagine. Margaret Sterling didn't handle being offstage gracefully, especially not by someone she dismissed as incompetent. "That's not my problem anymore, James," I replied, keeping my voice steady. He sighed heavily. "Emma, please. The company is struggling. We need—" "No," I cut him off. "What you need is to stop letting your mother run everything into the ground. But that's your choice to make, not mine." "Tech Solutions canceled the merger talks," he said quietly. "They won't say why, but we heard rumors they're meeting with Novatech." I sat back in my chair, savoring the moment. Like I said, not my problem. "Mother wants to sue you," he blurted out. "She's convinced you stole company secrets." I laughed, genuinely amused. "With what evidence? Everything I built at Novatech is original. But by all means, tell her to try. The publicity would be great for us." There was a long pause before James spoke again. "I miss you, Emma." The words hung in the air, heavy with everything left unsaid. Part of me missed him too. The James I've fallen in love with. The one who existed when his mother wasn't around. But that wasn't enough anymore. "Goodbye, James," I said softly and hung up. The next morning, I arrived at the office to find Margaret Sterling waiting in our reception area. She looked older somehow, the lines around her mouth deeper than I remembered. "Mrs. Sterling," I said calmly, "this is unexpected." She stood, smoothing her designer suit. "We need to talk." I led her to my office, watching as she took in the modern decor, the view of the bay, the Forbes magazine framed on the wall. Her lips tightened. "How much?" she asked abruptly. I raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me? How much to buy you out? To make this?" She waved her hand dismissively. "Little venture of yours go away." I couldn't help but laugh. "You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about money, Margaret. This is about building something meaningful, something of my own." "Don't be naive," she snapped. "Everything is about money. Name your price." I leaned forward, meeting her gaze directly. "Let me be very clear. Novatech isn't for sale. Not to you, not to anyone. But I do have a proposition for you." She frowned, suspicious. "What kind of proposition?" "A merger," I said simply. "But this time, Sterling Technologies would be the junior partner." "Your company is struggling, Margaret. Your stock is down, your clients are leaving, and your merger with Tech Solutions fell through. I'm offering you a lifeline." The color drained from her face. "You can't be serious." "Completely serious. You can either watch Sterling Technologies continue its decline, or you can swallow your pride and accept that you need us." "Never," she hissed, standing up. "I built that company from nothing. I won't hand it over to you." I shrugged, unfazed. "Then I guess we're done here. Sarah will show you out." As she reached the door, I called after her. Oh, and Margaret, next time you want to accuse someone of not belonging in the business world, make sure they don't have the power to prove you wrong. The door slammed behind her, but I barely noticed. I was already focused on my next meeting, this one with another major client looking to jump ship from Sterling Technologies. 3 days later, Sterling's stock hit an all-time low. James called again, but this time I didn't answer. I was done living in Margaret Sterling's shadow, done trying to prove myself worthy of her approval. A week after Margaret's visit, I stood in front of our entire company, announcing our latest achievement, a partnership with tech solutions worth $50 million. As I looked out at the faces of my team, people who believed in me, who had taken a chance on Nova Tech, I felt a profound sense of satisfaction. Sarah approached me after the announcement, holding out a newspaper. "Thought you might want to see this," she said with a slight smile. The headline read, "Sterling Technologies announces restructuring. CEO James Sterling steps down." Below was a smaller headline, "Margaret Sterling retires from board position." I handed the paper back to Sarah, my expression neutral. "Schedule a board meeting for tomorrow morning. I think it's time we discussed expansion plans." That evening, as I stood in my office watching the sun set over the bay, I thought about everything that had led to this moment. Margaret had been right about one thing. I didn't belong in her family business. I belonged somewhere better, at the head of my own. My phone buzzed with a text from Vincent, ready to take Nova Tech public. I smiled, typing back a quick response, more than ready. Margaret Sterling had tried to write me off as just another housewife playing at business. Instead, she created her own worst nightmare, a competitor who knew all her weaknesses and had nothing left to lose. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's becoming everything someone said you couldn't be, and I was just getting started.